Well, hello to everybody joining me for today's stream. We are going to be discussing the truth about Saturn and Satan. And so I think that these symbols are probably some of the most misunderstood and misinterpreted symbols in esoteric knowledge that we have. And so I thought we would address that and look further into the symbol of Saturn and how it can relate to Saturn, but it is not directly related to Satan. So we can see Satan within the symbol of Saturn and what Saturn represents. And that's what I'm going to be discussing today, because everyone's so focused on the symbol of the devil and Satan and, all of that negative and frightening, disturbing imagery that is surrounded by that symbol. And so we will address that. Now, before I do that, I do just want to let everybody know that I have decided I won't be doing a news and updates stream every week. Now, my reasoning for that, guys, is that basically I post so much information in my group every day, and I just feel to upload videos regarding the shit show that we are now observing is just adding to white noise, because it's all a stage show. That's all I can keep repeating. It's all a stage show, and until people can understand that it's all a stage show, really I'm just playing into it, because it's not real, guys. It's just actors on a stage literally mocking us. All of our global leaders, all of our, high level clergy of all of the religions, all of the media outlets, all of the actors, the celebrities, all of the people that are put out as the frontmen of technology, like, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, they're all actors, okay? They all are just playing their part in a script. And we are just basically watching the script unfold until they are ready to play out their last cards on us, which is, as I've repeated over and over again, and you will see it in all of my videos that I have uploaded, that they are going to crash the global financial system completely, bring in a new system where we are completely dependent upon them, literally communism, and our every move will be tracked, our every thought will be tracked to the best of their ability. And once they've played that card out, then they are going to literally bring us into World War III and try and destroy what they cannot inherit, because they are not going to be moving into the next cycle, the new great year cycle, which is what they are hiding from us, and is also what the symbol of Saturn represents, and which is why they've gone to great lengths to hide that truth and to literally scare people in regards to the symbol of Saturn. So that is my reasoning behind me not doing news updates. Now, in saying that, that doesn't mean I won't ever do one. If I do see something that I feel in the moment when I do see the information that it is worthy of a live stream, and I am in a position to be able to do that live stream, I definitely will do that. Just like what I do when I see certain information coming out in regards to the modern Christian community and all of the misinformation around that subject that modern Christianity has bastardized. I will often just do an impromptu live stream and address that. And so I will definitely do the same thing in regards to news updates and earth changes updates when I see that it warrants it. But other than that, I don't want to get into the habit of just, creating more white noise and just uploading news and updates, giving my observations on all of the, all of the different situations and events that they are creating and they are staging, because it is just a stage show, and so I'm really just repeating myself that it's a stage show. And so I really just don't think that that is a really good use of my time. I would rather actually address the esoteric knowledge, because I think that is more important to us and what we should be focused on, rather than their distractions, because they're really not worthy of our attention, other than just to ensure that we do understand what our enemy are basically, enacting on us. It's good to observe it, but not to discuss it and not to give it any more attention that it requires, because there's plenty of other channels out there doing that, okay? And we just don't want to be one other channel that is just playing into all of the shit show, because it really is, not worthy of our attention. What's worthy of our attention is this information and this knowledge, because it actually means something to us. It means something to who we are as a soul, in this incarnation, in these times. And so I think that's where our time is best served. So I hope people understand that, and let's get into it, shall we? So, good morning, everyone. Good to see some familiar faces. And, let's just save any questions till the end of the stream, so I don't, kind of lose track of what I'm discussing. I already have a problem with my tangents, as you guys know. So, I'll answer any questions you guys have at the end of the stream, if that probably would be better. And just rules of the stream: anyone that's is just discovering this stream, first discovering my channel, please don't make your assessment on the knowledge that I am providing based on this live stream, okay? You need to go and look at my over decades worth of research and studies. And we try not to be too heavy-handed here, but if we do get New Agers and people just commenting with, ignorance, opinion, and literally just trying to steer others into the ditch, you will be removed. And we don't apologize for that, because, this is really a place where students of the teachings, serious students of the teachings, come together so that we can share our enjoyment in understanding this divine knowledge. And so, I have no problem with people joining the stream who just see this as a curiosity, because sometimes that can translate into being more serious about your studies when you start to recognize how important this information is. But if it's just to chatter and just to give your opinion, and a lot of times it's because people are triggered, so they've already decided on what their beliefs are going to be. And then when somebody starts providing information that does not support their chosen beliefs, they get triggered and they will react to that very negatively. I mean, I got called a really, nasty name at the end of the last stream that I did, because I just was not going to enter into this person's ignorance and, shut them down pretty much immediately. And a lot of people don't like that. I just say it as it is, guys. There's no use beating around the bush. There's no use tippy-toeing around people's sensitivities. I won't do that, okay? I mean, seriously, if I am sick of this society being so offended by everything, so weak-willed, so lacking a spine, so cowardly that even words just cause people to, literally have meltdowns. And so if that's you, then this stream is definitely not for you, because I just will not, entertain this simple-minded, weak-minded behavior. If you find you are somebody that reacts negatively and literally lashes out at others when they say something that you don't agree with and don't like, then you need to do some work on that. You need to work on yourself so that that doesn't bother you. I do not get bothered by what people say about me. I mean, I've been doing this for over a decade, and I have had some of the most horrible things said about me. I've had videos made about me. I've had people stalk me. I've had people do, some really nasty things and say some nasty things. And I'm still here because literally they are very insignificant in my experience, and they can't take away what I know. And I know what I know because I spent the time to do the research. I didn't go listening to anybody that just sounded good and was telling me what I wanted to believe. I actually went out and studied all of the ancient texts for myself. I learned about the symbolism. I learned about Hermetic science, which was a foundation in which I use to build everything else upon. And you guys know that I say that Hermetic science is so important. I cannot, I cannot say that strongly enough about how important it is to understand the 7 Hermetic principles, the 7 Hermetic universal laws, because they will allow you to weigh and measure all other information and knowledge. And we will see some of these Hermetic laws in the information that I will relay about the symbol of Saturn and Satan. Right, so after that little introduction, I will get into it, I suppose. Now, to start with, the most important thing about the symbol of Saturn is that Saturn represents and symbolizes time. And that is why we hear that Kronos and Saturn are also known as the father of time. And this is because everything is based on different stages within the cycles that we exist in. And this is what Saturn represents. He represents the cycles of our soul, the cycles of our universal design. And this is why we also see in Revelations where Ezekiel sees the wheels within the wheels. And this is what this is representing, that everything in our universe basically exists in a form of a cycle. We see it everywhere. We see the cycle of the seasons. We see the cycle of, life around us, the cycle of plants, the cycle of our lives, of animals' lives. And everything works in this rhythmic cycle. And we can see this in the Hermetic principle of rhythm, the Hermetic principle of correspondence, and the Hermetic principle of polarity that shows us. Polarity shows us that everything happens in degrees, that there is no absolute in anything, that everything is a different degree. So, where does hot, if we look at the spectrum of hot and cold, where is it no longer hot and it becomes cold? I mean, it's not an immediate line where we know, okay, this is hot, this is cold. It goes from degrees of, higher to lower. And we can see this in everything in the universe. This is part of the universal design. And I've spoken about this before in regards to the divinity within mankind, that it goes in degrees. And this is what Jesus represents. He represents the highest degree of divinity within humans, within mankind. and then it goes from the highest degree down to the lower degrees, which are mortal men, iron men, and then clay, iron and clay. And so when you understand these different degrees, you start to understand more about the symbolism behind Jesus and how Jesus is not God the Father. And I can't tell you how many discussions I am having with modern Christians who continue to just bring up the same verses over and over and over again, literally showing how they're all brainwashed into believing that Jesus is God the Father. And then they will swear to you that they don't have a clergy and that they don't just listen to their priests tell them what to believe, that they've actually read the Bible and that they're just studying the texts, and that's, you know, why they've come to that conclusion. Literally ignoring the fact that they've come to that conclusion because their priests have told them how to interpret the scriptures. And those priests that are telling them this every Sunday or every Saturday, whenever they've chosen to, you know, worship Jesus as God, those priests are all following a narrative given to them by their higher level clergy. So it's not as though their pastors or their priests just decide that they are going to interpret the scriptures in the way that they see might actually be different in the way that the higher level clergy have told them. I mean, they don't just get to say, you know, well, I don't actually agree with that. I think that this is how it should be interpreted. No way. I mean, they would be removed from their positions straight away if they actually did that. So it's really unfortunate that they have allowed themselves to be taken down the wide path to destruction, but that's all part of the cycle that we exist into, and that's all part of our tests. And that's why you will find that very few people are interested in this knowledge. Very few people will listen to these streams and these videos because the path to life is narrow, you know, and few there be that find it. Very few. Because for the most part, humanity is definitely being herded in a certain direction. And because that's how we work as a collective, it's literally how we're designed, it's just very hard for us to break away from the herd. And so when the herd are all going over the cliff, it's because of cowardice. You know, they're too cowardly to turn and make their own path. But that is how you find life. That is how you find truth. You must break away from the herd, especially in the Iron Age, in these times. And again, this is what Saturn represents. So when we see Saturnalia, and I have done actually a blog about this on my website and just gone into more detail to describe Saturnalia and the symbolism regarding Saturnalia. And you know, anyone that, as I've said, anyone that wants a more refined understanding or more refined way of me relaying this knowledge, you need to go and watch my other videos. I had someone say to me that, oh, I like this video, you know, it was the one about the mental universe, but you're all over the place. Yes, that's because it's a live stream. That's just me on the fly, you know, just you know, basically relaying information as it comes to me. And sometimes it will be disjointed, sometimes I will go on a tangent, sometimes I will, you know, forget to include information. So that's why it's good to go back and watch my other videos where I've actually narrated and put down the information in a very orderly way. Okay, so don't assume the knowledge that I am bringing you here is just based on what is in this live stream. Go and have a look at the other videos. So anyway, the Saturnalia. So what they used to do with Saturnalia is the servants would serve the masters and the masters would serve no, it was the other way around. So the masters would become the servants for the day, and the servants would become the masters for the day. And so it was like an exchanging of roles. And so this was symbolizing each of our incarnations, okay, was symbolizing how in one incarnation we might be a servant and in another incarnation we might be a master, because we're tested, our soul is tested in different ways. And believe it or not, it is literally harder for your soul when you are given a life of ease. So when you are gifted a incarnation where you are basically the master and you have been gifted material luxuries and a higher station in life, it is harder for you to succeed in your tests as a soul. It is more challenging for someone who is already gifted luxuries and an easy life and very few challenges to basically grow into a good soul, you know, because power corrupts. Okay, when we have power over others, we can easily be corrupted and we can easily take advantage of others. Very few actually put their power and their wealth and their higher station to good use. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's not something that happens in the majority, which is what we see now, especially in these times. Anybody that really has a lot of money and a lot of power, you know, they don't put that to good use. And when we do see people who do have celebrity and power and materialism and, you know, money, put that to good use, we usually hear about it, and they usually shout it from the rooftops. So they're actually using it to give the appearance of goodness, and that is not what you do when you are someone who is a good soul. You just literally do that because you want to help others. You don't literally need others to pat you on the back for it. You don't want to, you know, make yourself popular in the eyes of others because they see you as kind, and so you're kind of using that as leverage, and that's what we see a lot in these days. So that's one of the symbols that Saturnalia is representing. So the cycle of your soul and how you go between, you know, the highs and the lows, and it's all about our tests. And also it's representing the golden age, where there is a more equal standing among mankind because there is so much abundance. And so even though the divine race are the guardians and the leaders and the teachers and instructors of mankind, everything is more communal, but not in a corrupted way like we see communism now. Because communism now isn't really communism. It's literally just the more powerful consolidating their power in a way that they meter out how everything is equal. So it's not really that there is any equality. And so it's a different type of communal sharing in the golden age, because nobody's fighting for ownership of more materialistic wealth or resources, because there is so much abundance, you know, and we do not need to exert a lot of energy and effort to maintain our existence. I mean, literally, it is an easier time on the earth. And again, that comes with its negatives, because that can actually encourage hubris and arrogance. And this is why within the cycle we see that halfway through the great year at the Silver Gate, everything, there's a cataclysm that shakes everything from its foundations, and everything is reset in a way. And so this is basically the beginning of the descent of mankind and the descent of the gods into the Iron Age, where they will literally just lose their abilities, they will lose their access to their divine natures and their divinity, and they will just appear like mortal men and not know themselves. And again, this is another test. So this is literally what Saturnalia is celebrating. It's nothing evil. I don't really know how people can twist Saturn into being evil, but I suppose it's because of those paintings where you see Saturn eating his children. And interestingly, those paintings were probably actually commissioned by the Jesuits and by the Catholic Church, who wanted to scare people away from that symbolism and from the understanding of time, and why time was so important, and why all of the cultures marked time and marked the cycles of time. And so they literally encouraged a fear around the symbol of Saturn, because if you actually look at the mythology of Saturn, it all starts from a prophecy, ancient Greece prophecy, and also the Romans then had a prophecy about Saturn. It was very similar to the ancient Greeks. I mean, they literally shared mythology, and they just had a slightly different way of relaying the mythology around the symbols. And, you know, sometimes we can also see where the myths were rewritten again. And so you have several myths about the same symbol and they're different. And that's because they tried to poison the well. But if we look at the symbols around Saturn and the mythology around Saturn, basically the prophecy was that one of Saturn's sons was going to overthrow him. And so he decided that as soon as his sons, which were the Titans, all the different Titans, as soon as they were born, and it wasn't just his sons, it was his daughters too, because the Titans were the sons and daughters, they were both genders. As soon as the Titans were born, so Saturn wouldn't be overthrown, as the prophecy was told. He would eat them, he would consume them and swallow them. And so that's what he did. As soon as they were born, Saturn ate his children, ate each one of them, swallowed them. But he didn't rip them apart like this, that the paintings are showing. He literally swallowed them whole. Okay, that is what the mythology says. So see how they poison the well and they make it this really negative, horrible thing, right? So just as he is about to eat Zeus or Jupiter, and we know that Zeus and Jupiter are symbols for God, the Creator, God the Father. And so just as he is about to consume Zeus, Jupiter, Rhea wraps a stone, okay, in a blanket, like swaddles a blanket as though made it look like a baby, and tricks Saturn into eating the stone, okay. And so Saturn thinks he's eating Zeus, and he actually swallows the stone, right? And then the stone literally causes him to vomit up all of the other children, okay? And they all come out whole. So he didn't kill them, he didn't rip them apart and eat them. And then because of that, it ends up being that Jupiter supplants Saturn and becomes ruler. And so the prophecy becomes fulfilled. And so we can see a lot of symbolism even in this prophecy, or even in this mythology, because we know the stone represents, you know, the solid foundations of God the Father, because we know that God the Father, the creator of the universe, the mind of the all, is unmoving. And everything moves around the creator, okay? But the creator never changes, and the creator always stays the same. And so this is representing, you know, Zeus, because Rhea tricked Saturn into thinking that he ate Zeus, and Zeus was represented by the stone, okay? And also time as well, okay, is represented. So, you know, this is, again, it's just a misconception, the way that they can misinterpret this mythology and make it something negative. And really, it's just literally explaining the cycles of time and how how Zeus is also basically only present. So God the Father, his divine nature, or his power, his Holy Spirit, his light, his presence, he is only present on the physical plane during certain times of the cycle, like the golden age. Okay, and then as we come into the silver age, we also know who the gods are and who the divine are. And while we know that there are divine among mankind, while we are in that part of the cycle that we can clearly see who is divine and who isn't divine, we know we have a tangible understanding of the Creator. So it's tangible to us. So God is present on the physical plane through his children, because we never actually will, physically see God the Father, which is why I laugh at agnostics. I'm sorry I'm going to tangent here, guys, but agnostics, seriously, what the, really? They're just atheists. I just laugh at people that call themselves agnostic, and they make them, it's like, I'm an agnostic. And they say it as though I'm superior to an atheist because I'm an agnostic. And, I will believe in God when I see God. That's their whole reasoning. No, you're either an atheist or you're a believer. I mean, there is no in between. There is no, well, I will believe when I see tangible evidence. Well, good luck with that, because it's not going to happen. I mean, we already have evidence that there is a creator because there's design in the universe. I mean, you'd have to be a freaking idiot to see that there is design in our universal world, design in us, design in, in the sacred geometry that you see everywhere, in the Fibonacci sequence that you see everywhere. I mean, we see sacred geometry in all of the planets, in their orbits, in their sizes, in the way they relate to each other, and we are supposed to believe that is random. You would have to be the biggest moron on the planet if you see that we have design in nature, that it is there literally all around us, and you believe that is random because you have made scientists your gods instead. And scientists can't even explain that. Scientists cannot explain what caused the Big Bang. They all like to say, oh, the Big Bang, there's evidence of the Big Bang. Okay, so what caused it? Crickets. They just literally can't answer you. I mean, they aren't. They really are not even worth your time in arguing. I see sometimes when, I love to scroll Christian videos, and I sometimes see these misinformed Christians entering into these heated discussions with these atheists, trying to convince them, and it's just a waste of time. Why bother? They are idiots. They have shown themselves to be idiots. They have shown themselves to be so shallow thinking that they can't even contemplate their own existence or the creation of the universe on any deep level at all. Because if they did, they would know that there's no possible way that you can explain the existence of us and of our created universe, and how that there are laws that we are aligned to. I mean, the moon orbits, the planet at exactly the same time, all the time. We go around the sun, it doesn't change. All the planets stay in their course, don't they? They don't bang into each other. And, this is because there are laws in place. Who put them there? Who keeps the planets in their orbits? Who keeps the sun where it is, and the cycles on the sun? I mean, they never even think deeper than that. And so don't even worry about these people, and they're not even worth convincing. I mean, they're just idiots. Just literally just call them idiots. I do. I just laugh at them. I really do, because they've just shown themselves to be very shallow thinkers, and they know it, which is why they are really so aggressive and you know, they will really attack you, and they'll normally go for personal attacks. You know, I always know when I've triggered someone when they stalk my channel. Like, so I'm discussing something with them and then suddenly they start bringing up things on my channel to try and discredit me and make me sound, you know, crazy, or, oh, she's into all of that occult stuff, you know. And you know that they've been really triggered to go and stalk your channel, you know, and try and find something that they can discredit you with or attack you with, you know. I never, when I'm entering into a discussion or something with somebody, I never go and look at their channel. I really couldn't give a shit. I mean, most people are just so stupid. It just really just blows my mind how people can be so moronic in these times when there's so much knowledge and information around us. So anyway, so literally we can see that is what explains the symbolism around Saturn eating his children. It's in regards to the cycles that we exist in, how the gods are present, the divine race are present at some stages of the cycle, and then they are not present, okay, because they are. And you know, actually there is a really good verse from the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and it basically says, the Saviour said, all nature, all formations, all creatures exist in and with one another, and they will be resolved again into their own roots. So that is a really good way. See how symbols sometimes relay information to us, that, and mythology does it the same, that sometimes words just can't express. And it's the same when we go through the cycle of the great year, because at the end of the great year everything is resolved back into itself again to be rebirthed into a new cycle, into a new great year. And so everything will start again, everything will be renewed, everything will be new. And you know, a really great symbol, you know, when you see the Buddhists do the sand mandalas and they show the 4 directions in the mandalas, they'll always have the 4 points, the north, south, east and west, and they'll start in the middle and then they'll create this beautiful sand mandala, and it will take them months and months and months to create this most intricate, beautiful design. And then when they finish that design, what do? They shake it and they start again. And that is symbolizing how we begin at the start of a new great year, and we start to create ourselves. And every great year is different. And so the next great year will be different to the great year that we've just lived now and that we're now in the end stages of. And it's like, exactly, so it's like the 4 seasons, you know, and that is often a mythology and a symbolism that is attached to the different stages of the great year cycle. And we are now, yes, we are now back in winter. And, you know, and you can see summer as literally the golden age, okay? And so this is, everything can be, it's a fractal, you know, and the universe is fractal, okay? And this is how you can understand divine knowledge, because that's how the universe is designed and works. And so you can see fractals of nature in everything else, and that's how you can unravel the truths, by just observing nature. And many of the ancient philosophers say that, you know, if you want to understand truth, you know, observe nature, because it's a fractal. So this is what happens, yeah, at the end of the cycle, everything, because there, and same with that sand mandala that I was just talking about. And so those 4 directions, the north, the south, the east, the west, they're also representing the 4 races, and the 4 races of the divine race, okay? And so each of those races will express creation differently. And so we are the same, but we are different. And we can see that with all the races. Each of the races all have their skills and all have their attributes that are personal to them, that they excel at. And even though we can excel at the same skills, you know, we all have that potential, it comes easier to them. And this is how the universe is designed, you know, and how God has created himself within us. And I've said this before, if you want to see the divine race in the way that it is created, you see that God has created himself in human form. And this is where the statue of Daniel in the book of Daniel, you know, see that God has created himself as man on earth, but, you know, the head is a certain race, the arm is another race, this arm, this leg, this, and they all go together to make up the whole. And that is how God experiences himself in the material form. God experiences itself, and I say himself, and I just want to reiterate that God is androgynous. I like to see God in the male fatherly form, and so I will refer to God as he, but in truth God is androgynous. But I do find calling God it, I kind of find it a bit disrespectful, and I don't want to call God it because I think that reduces God. So I will apply the male attributes to God and call God he. Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there for anybody that's just joining the stream right now. So God experiences himself through us. And so people say, oh, I don't even understand why we're here. You know, why do we even exist? You know, what's life all about? Well, life is all about God experiencing himself in the material form through us, through our feelings, through our experiences is how God experiences himself. So he does this in the same way with the divine, because the divine represent different parts of God and they have different skills and attributes. So each of the races, we all begin as one at the beginning when we're rebirthed back into a new great year. And then we all go on our own way to recreate and to create and manifest our experience on the physical plane. And so that sand mandala is such an awesome symbol when you can view it in that way. And then at the end of the cycle, the sandbox gets all shaken up again and we start from the beginning again. And that's literally the really, you know, easiest way to describe it. And sand is really a good way to see it as well, because sand is basically describing matter and how matter is created through vibration and different vibrations. And so the vibrations of the golden age are very different to the vibrations of the iron age. And we are in a very dense part of the cycle right now, but we are now moving back into a lighter part of the cycle. As we move into the golden age, we're moving back into an ethereal part of the cycle where matter isn't so dense. And this is why the divine will have access to their abilities and their skills, and they will be known for who they are. So yeah, literally that is how we can see the great year and how Saturn is very, very connected to the great year. And that's why they've gone to bastardize this symbol, you know, and try and equate him, Saturn, with Satan. So let's see how Saturn can be equated to Satan. So again, we know that Saturn represents time and the cycle of time. And when we move down into the lower ages and we're in a very dense material part of the cycle, which is what we've been in through the last few ages of the Iron Age, okay? So the Iron Age, thankfully, doesn't go more than a few thousand years. But in this part of the cycle, it is very, very dense, and we have lost access completely to our divine portion. We have lost access to knowing who the divine are amongst mankind, and we have turned our backs on God the Father, and the divine have turned their backs on God the Father too. And so we've turned our focus to materialism. And this is what Satan represents. Okay. Satan represents materialism. Satan represents the soul who is trapped in only a materialistic understanding of itself. It doesn't understand that it is a soul. It doesn't understand that there is a cycle of time. It doesn't understand that there are repercussions for their actions. It just wants to believe that the material world is the extent of existence and its existence. And so it is very easily swayed into indulging in materialism. And so this is how we can see Satan has trapped us into a material and evil existence. Because I mean, we can see materialism as being evil because it encourages us to indulge in our vices. And so nothing is inherently evil. It's always perception. Our actions can be evil. I mean, when you see people preying on children, that is evil. So we can literally express our own actions in a very negative way, an evil way. But as in the operations of the universe and the divine operations of our existence, it's not inherently evil. It's just our existence and the way everything is in polarity. And so we have times of good and we have times of evil. We have times where virtue is more present in the cycle, and we have times when vice is more present in the cycle. But we need both, because that is what creates the experience. We can't have good all the time, okay? Because then we would not know what evil is anyway. There would be no way to experience ourselves and reality in full. So we need both polarities. What we have to understand and have knowledge of is ourselves, so that we align ourselves with the good, with virtuous behavior. And I've said that this is what the number 11 Justice card represents. And if you can see the number 11 as the rails of the divine laws, okay? And so when God created the universe and God brought himself into existence, universal law was also created. And universal law works to ensure that creation continues. You know, I mean, if we start changing universal law into our own laws, what we prefer based on our vices, then we would literally stop flourishing as a species, because male and male cannot, create. Male and male cannot create offspring. Female and female cannot create offspring. So the reason that divine laws are in place is because they are there to ensure that creation continues and that the universe continues to be a place of, continues to be abundant and create. And so it's our own vices that want to push us off that road. If we see as I said, we see the divine laws as a road and the two sides of the road railings. You don't want to go outside of those railings. You want to stay within those railings. And we normally know within ourselves when we're not aligning ourselves with divine law, because it doesn't feel right. And we start making excuses for ourselves. And we start, when somebody, taps us on the shoulder and says, I don't know if that's the best behavior. I mean, you might not be doing the right thing there. We get aggressive towards them. We get, we don't want to hear it. So we normally know in ourselves, we do have a compass within ourselves that we can tell when we are, not going in alignment with divine law. and sometimes more than others. Okay, so everything should be in moderation. It's an easy one. So don't overindulge in food, alcohol, anything that is just continually providing you with pleasure all the time, in an abundance, over an abundance. That is not really a positive thing for us, because we can see it in the way our bodies actually respond to overeating and overindulging. We get obese. I mean, if we're overindulging alcohol and drugs, then, we start to lose our grip on reality and, what is real and what isn't. And it's detrimental to us, our minds and our body. Stealing, it doesn't feel good. When you steal something, I mean, in the moment you might, take an opportunity. Okay, I'll give you an example. You go through go to get some takeaway. The woman's given you the wrong amount of change back. Okay, she's given you more than you knew. You handed her money and she's given you back more change than you knew you should get back. And so you drive away, and in the moment you're like, "Whoa! I just scored $10. Like, she got it wrong." But then you start thinking, oh man, she's probably going to get in trouble. Her till probably isn't going to balance tonight. It just doesn't feel good later. You start thinking about it, and then you start realizing, was it really worth, in that moment, getting that $10 that felt good? Because then later you start feeling regret. So it's like, it's self-evident when we're not aligning ourselves with divine law. And so this is what each soul has to do throughout their incarnations, throughout the great year, is to self-correct. We're here to learn. We're not always going to stay on the right path. We're not always going to stay in between those railings. And, that's all part of the experience, okay? We're not perfect. We're not going to ever attain perfection. The whole idea, though, is that when you move off and out of alignment, so when you move off the path and you're out of alignment with divine law, that you self-correct, that you identify it through, okay, that didn't feel good. I don't think that was the right thing to do. I shouldn't have done that. And then you move yourself back onto the path, and you realign yourself back with divine law, and you try to make amends, so maybe a few days later you go back to that place and you say, oh, the girl overcharged me, and here's $10. Don't actually point out who she was in case she gets into trouble. I'm just giving you one example, but there's always a way to correct. Okay, sometimes it's harder than others to correct yourself, and to make amends, but you try to do your best that you can with the situation. And so that's all that's expected of us, okay, is that we just try to stay aligned, and we try to do good in the world. We try to live our best self. We try to help others. Little old lady's having trouble crossing the road, help her across the road. You're driving to work and you see an animal on the side of the road that's been hit by a car, and it's, it's struggling and it's not doing well. Stop. Get the animal, wrap it in a blanket, go take it to a vet. It's just these small little things that make a difference between whether you are adding to creation and benefiting creation, to whether you are just taking. And in these times, we just take a lot. We just take and take and take, and we don't give back. And sometimes it's just the smallest thing. And there's even actually a verse in the scriptures. I can't remember it word for word, but it's basically, so all of these people come into church and they all put in the bowl, they're all giving into the bowl, which, by the way, the bowl that used to be handed around church used to go directly to the poor. It didn't actually go to the church to pay for the clergy, okay, or to help the clergy get a new car, to buy a new house, to build another church. So literally, in this parable, all of these rich people come into the church and they're all putting all of their money in, and then look at me, I'm putting my $50 in and $100 in, whatever. And this little old lady comes in and she hardly has any money at all. And she just gives a little bit. She gives like, a penny. But I think it's Jesus, turns around and says, out of all of you who have just given, that little old lady there has given more than any of you, because she didn't have much to start with and she still gave, whereas you all gave because you have abundance. And so there's a difference. So it's about the motivation. It's always about the motivation. It's even like when you are seeking out knowledge. It is the motivation behind seeking out knowledge. There are so many people that seek out esoteric knowledge to make names for themselves, right? And then they start channels and they start just speaking shit and telling people just, you know, absolute disinformation that sounds good. And they do that to get notoriety. They do that to make a name for themselves using the esoteric knowledge. And that's pretty much 99% of everybody that has any possession of esoteric knowledge at the moment but doesn't understand it. So what they'll do is they'll just take the esoteric knowledge, put it together in a way that sounds really positive and tells people what they want to hear, and they become very popular. And then that, you know, is a way that they gain notoriety, and so that is not the right motivation for seeking out this knowledge. You should be seeking out this knowledge only because you want the truth. You want the truth about who you are, you want the truth about the times that we live in, and you want it for no other reason other than to better yourself and to better understand your creator, your divine nature, and to help others. Because once we do have possession of this knowledge, we do have a responsibility to apply this knowledge to ourselves and to help others. And that doesn't mean setting yourself up to be, you know, attacked when other people are not going to listen. It's like throwing pearls to swine. That is not what I'm saying. You will be able to identify when you can drop little gems to people. And if you see a situation get set up where you can drop a gem, and sometimes it does take a bit of courage, but you can do it in a way that you're just seeding people, just so that you drop a little seed that they can think about. You need to do that, because sometimes you'll know when you don't do it, because you'll walk away and you'll go, wow, I could have just said that. I should have said it. But I didn't, because I didn't want to be different. I didn't want to stand out. And I mean, I'm not saying do it in a way that it can actually negatively affect your life and your family's life. I mean, you don't want to do that, okay? Because in the end, nobody is really going to listen. But you can just plant seeds. And we do have a responsibility to do that. And you do have a responsibility to understand that you should do good in the world when you can. You know, that is important too. Don't allow situations where you can actually help others to just go past. You know, they're windows of opportunity that the universe is providing for you to increase your karma, you know, because we are all collecting karma, either negative or positive, throughout each of our experiences. And this is what Thoth, the adjudicator in ancient Egypt symbolism, is literally representing, okay? At the end of the cycle, the great year, there will be a weighing of the heart. And everything that you have done through all of your incarnations will be weighed and measured. It will be known. The universal mind, universal divine operation knows how to weigh and measure every soul. And so this is why you have to, you know, find, you know, opportunities in where you can do good. That's what's most important. So, and the universe will present them to you all the time. So you need to just see those opportunities and, you know, work on those opportunities and do good in the world. I mean, that's literally why we're here. And that is one of our responsibilities. Right, so let's go into a little bit more symbolism with Saturn. So both Saturn and Uranus are ruled by Aquarius, and Aquarius symbolizes the end and beginning of the great new year. And you will see that I have a painting in the loop of pictures that I am playing. you'll see that there's a couple of paintings by Jofre Boschart. Now, I will put these paintings in the Keepers of the Flame MeWe group. There is a link to the group underneath the video. And I suggest that you guys look at the symbolism within these paintings. He was commissioned by an anonymous person to do these works, which I found really, really interesting because they are so full of information. I mean, if you want to look at symbolism and learn about the language of symbolism, then study the paintings of Jofre Boschart. And I will put them in the group, in the MeWe group, Keepers of the Flame, for you guys to look at them in more detail. And I might even actually do a live stream about each of his paintings, and we'll go into each of his paintings and we will unravel all of the symbolism, and I will go into discussion at length to looking into all of the symbolism, because that is what the different zodiacs actually represent too. They're nothing to do with fortune telling and predicting your future. They're all about encoding knowledge. And this is why they used the constellations, because they can't change, right? So when I say they can't change, I mean the Antichrists, when they take control of the physical plane in the lower ages, in the Iron Age, cannot change the constellations. And so what they do is they enshroud the constellations in so much mythology that it survives the sands of time, the cycle of time, okay? Because we can then look at the mythologies surrounding the zodiacs, and we can then start to piece back together the information and the truths that have been taken from us and hidden from us. And so, yes, if you have a look at that painting of Aquarius, you can see that Aquarius is basically tipping out the water. Now, the water represents in symbolism the ether. And so that is why you will often see water symbolized in a lot of the esoteric illustrations and artworks, and that is representing the ether. And so he is showing that their ether is returning by pouring out the urn full of the water. The ether is returning to the physical plane. But then in the background, you can see that there's a skull and people are walking like through the skull. Okay. And so that is representing that to be reborn, you know, and this is the true, you know how modern Christians talk about, you know, I was reborn, you know, rebirth, reborn, you know, born again Christian. That's literally symbolism that they have stolen from the esoteric knowledge about the soul being rebirthed into the great year. And I hate to break it to these Christians, but I doubt any of them are coming through into the great year, because they were cowards, they were spineless, they were weak-minded, and they allowed the clergy to decide their fates. They handed their salvation over to the clergy. They handed their minds and their souls over to the clergy instead of going and seeking out this knowledge for themselves. So they have shown themselves to be unworthy. They have shown themselves to be weak, and there is no rewards for the weak-minded and the cowardly. So unfortunately, these modern Christians have just taken the wide path with everybody else, and that is unfortunate. It really is. And you cannot get through to these people. I try every day. I waste my time, literally. I know I waste my time. I basically know that as I'm engaging in discussion with them, I know I'm wasting my time. But then I sometimes think maybe there's just somebody who's already having doubts reading these comments, and maybe, just maybe, one or two of them might go and look into it a little bit further. But for the most part, you are not going to be able to get through to these people. They are just too far gone, and they are too cowardly to actually trust in their own God-gifted intellect, which is so sad. So Uranus actually symbolizes, so the last planets So from, I think it's Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they represent the higher levels of the planes of existence. So Uranus represents heaven. Neptune represents the tide of the ether going in and out, and that's why you see the god of Neptune. He's associated with the ocean. And Pluto represents the underworld, or the afterworld rather, because Pluto doesn't just represent Hades, and even Hades doesn't just represent the lower levels of, if you actually look at the symbolism behind Hades, Hades is just representing the ethereal plane and the higher and lower levels of the ethereal plane, but most people just connect the symbol of Hades to the lower levels of the ethereal plane, because there are higher and lower levels of the ethereal plane, and when a soul passes from the material plane and leaves their material body and goes back into their true form, which is our soul, into the ethereal plane, based on their incarnation, and this is the in-between incarnations during the great year. I'm not talking about at the end of the great year when we all pass through into a new great year and we have to be weighed and measured on a larger level, because remember, everything is in different degrees. I'm talking when we move through our incarnations and we pass from body to body, from material body to material body. We spend a time in our true form on the ethereal plane, and dependent on that previous incarnation, we will either exist in the higher levels of the ethereal plane or the lower levels. Now, as I've said before, as we traverse our incarnations, we collect sin, okay? And sin can just be viewed as weight, okay? That's all it is. It's just weight. Karma can be seen in the same way, all right? It's just weight. And so every time we move outside of alignment of divine law, we create weight. And so if we've done that a lot, if we've indulged in lots of vice throughout our incarnation, we weren't a very nice person, we didn't give back, we didn't help create abundance to universal design, we worked against universal design, we've created weight within our soul. And so when we pass through into the ethereal plane, that will determine our position on the ethereal plane. For those that have attained less sin, less weight, they will go to the higher levels, to heaven, okay, to the Elysium fields, it's called. It's called many different words. That they will go to the higher level. For those who have gathered a lot of weight because they were moving out of alignment with divine law and were selfish and, really indulged in their vices, they have created a lot of weight in their soul, and they will go to the lower levels of the ethereal plane. And so there are also beings that inhabit the higher and lower planes, and they're known as angels and demons as well, and they will seek to elevate our experience over on the ethereal plane as well. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of information about that. I am only just starting to delve into that, but it's a very unknown, because there's not a lot of tangible pieces of information that you can kind of piece back together. And angels can also be a double meaning, because they can literally also represent the gods as well. So the divine race can be seen as angels, earth angels, in the different way of perceiving the symbolism as well. But from what I've gauged so far, and you can see this in the Hermetica, so go and read the Corpus Hermetica, it explains a lot about the soul and the, entities that exist on the ethereal plane as well. So yeah, the best thing for us to do is to utilize our material forms in the best way we can, so that when we move into the ethereal, we are experiencing the more positive aspects of the ethereal plane and not the negative aspects of the ethereal plane, otherwise known as hell, okay, or the bowels of Hades. Right. So in the higher ages, so Saturn can represent knowledge, abundance, prosperity, and in the lower ages, that's when Saturn can be likened to Satan, and that is the only time you can connect Satan to Saturn. And you know, Manly P. Hall has a really good teaching or quote about the symbol of Saturn, symbol of Satan, sorry. So just let me read this out because it kind of explains it a little bit more within how Satan is just really a state of mind and a state of our experience in the lower ages. So Manly P. Hall says, when the mysteries were celebrated in ancient Egypt, there was an evil spirit called Typhon or Set who brought about the death of the good Osiris. It is the red Set that has given us our concept of the devil. But Set was nothing but the material world, the ground of man's temptation, and also the environment in which he gains immortality through self-discipline. Therefore, Set or Satan is the divine opportunity, the world into which we come in ignorance, but from which we depart in wisdom. It is the obstacle that is ever building strength. It is that whole field of difficulty which overcome makes us master of our own life. So see how literally he's just confirming what I was saying before. It's like literally when you're given an easier life, it's harder for you to overcome your tests. So Saturn is literally representing the material world and the challenges that the material world places before a soul. And we can see that as opportunity to better ourselves, because these opportunities to better ourselves gives us an opportunity to lighten our souls, to align ourselves in a way that we can traverse the physical plane in alignment with divine laws. And when we are in alignment with divine laws, we are literally, you know, acting in a virtuous way and not gathering sin and weight in our soul. And we can remove sin by acting in a virtuous way and helping others. For every kind deed, you know, the universe will repay everything that is put out. When we put out a negative behavior, it comes back to us in other ways. It might not be immediately, and this is what people often know as karma, but it happens in the same way with everything. And it can be seen, you know, with sin as well, you know. And so when you put out a positive, it comes back to you as well. So yeah, I thought that was really a good way of basically describing Satan. So people actually think that, you know, and I'm not saying you guys, you know, I'm thinking just the general public see Satan and the devil as something nasty and horrible and evil. And modern Christians actually, and even I have people listening to my stream who will comment later and say, oh, you're so wrong. Satan is a deity. The devil is a deity, and you will pay for, you know, like they just are so caught up in their own fear that they can't let go of that. Because I suppose when you personify that aspect of the material world and the time that we exist in that material world, it brings some sense of comfort to people because they can identify it as over there, that thing, and not actually present in their current environment. But Satan is all around them. That is what modern Christians don't understand. Satan is literally walking hand in hand with them every day. You know, every time they roll up to church in their brand new SUV, they've just walked hand in hand with Satan. Every time they go and spend money on, you know, beautiful, luxurious items to furnish their beautiful, luxurious homes, they've just walked hand in hand with Satan. You know, every time they step into that church and they hand their mind over to that clergy that are standing in front of them, telling them everything to believe, telling them to worship the statue of Jesus on the cross, which is literally an idol, telling them to worship Mary holding baby Jesus, which is literally an idol, telling them to pray to Jesus, they are walking hand in hand in the devil. The devil is in their lives. Satan is in their lives every single day, and they are unaware of it. And so it brings them comfort and security to think of Satan being out there somewhere where I can identify him easily, because he's that dude over there, the red dude with the pitchfork, and he's got horns, and I better avoid him, better be careful about him, better not go near him, and this is how they are tripped up and ensnared in, this satanic behavior, because literally they are living in a satanic way every single day that they give in to their worldliness. And they are all worldly. They all love to drive around in their brand new cars. They all love to live in their beautiful brand new houses. They all like to lie themselves and tell them, well, God gave me this. If I'm living in this big, beautiful mansion and I'm driving around in this big, beautiful car, it's because God wanted me to. No. You had a choice, and you chose indulgence in materialism. Did anyone see Jesus, walking around in beautifully refined golden robes, and he was telling everybody how rich he was and that he lived in a big mansion? No, he literally was telling the opposite. In fact, it was all about doing what Jesus was doing. And what was Jesus doing? Was he telling everybody, I am God, worship me? There is not one verse in the Bible where Jesus ever says, I am God. He says, I am, but he never says, I am God. So why would he stop short? If Jesus was God the Father and God and wanted people to worship him, why would he not say, I am God? Why would he just say, I am? Why would he say, I and the Father are one, but he didn't say, I am the Father? Because he is showing that he holds God within, the divine portion within him, at the highest degree. If you were to see God manifest in the flesh, you would look to the highest degree of divine nature in mankind, and that would be Jesus. That doesn't make Jesus God the Father. And a lot of the other ones they use, the only one they always love is that the Word was God, and and then Jesus was the Word. Okay, to start with, Jesus is the Word of God on the physical plane. Just because the Word was with God and the Word was God and then Jesus was the Word doesn't mean that Jesus, again, but they want to be lied to. At some point, it's about them wanting the lies over the truth. So it's all about self-responsibility here, and them not really wanting the truth. They want the lies that the clergy give to them, because, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if all you ever had to do to secure your place in heaven and to be a bestie with Jesus was just to rock up to church every Saturday or Sunday and listen to what your clergy tell you to believe, and then just go about your life as you would any other time? I mean, and really not make many changes at all. Oh, okay, maybe once a month you help out at the soup kitchen, and then you go tell everybody about it. You make sure you post that on Facebook, how you just spent the day at the soup kitchen helping everybody. I mean, these people are so transparent. And if they're transparent to us, then they're transparent to the universal mind, okay, and to the all. So they're just fooling themselves, really. So the other couple of verses that I did want to bring to you were from the Colburn. And I have read this one out before, but it is literally about how the soul sinks into matter. And again, this is what Saturn represents, the cycle of time, the soul. This is what the clipping of the wings, when you see the pictures of Saturn clipping the wings of Cupid, Saturn is taking away the divine nature or the appearance of the divine nature and the abilities of the divine man to access his divine nature or his divine abilities. That is what that represents, that there is a part within the cycle where the divine race, the divine man and woman, no longer have access to their divine abilities, and it humbles them because they become mortals. They become like mortals. Of course, that divine portion within them will never change. And when the Christ light returns, when the ether returns, the Holy Spirit returns, the manna, there's lots of different ways that it's described. When that returns to the physical plane, and we are now starting to see this slowly, permeating through the physical plane now, because this is what's resulting in a lot of the earth changes, a lot of the tectonic activity, the volcanic activity. Everything is shifting. Mother Earth, if we want to see Mother Earth in that way, and Mother Earth isn't a conscious entity, I'm not saying it in that way, I'm just saying it in a way that I give reverence to God's kingdom, to the earth that provides us with sustenance. And so I like to see it in that way. We are experiencing, or Mother Earth is experiencing, birthing pains. We can see that right now. And those who are very observant, who are not caught up in the white noise, can also observe that there are changes taking place. And of course, they're blaming this on human activity, and they're creating a narrative around this to keep people ignorant of why it's really happening. And the reason it's really happening is because we're in the last degree of the cycle, of the great year cycle. And we are about to enter into the golden age. But before then, we are going to experience a cataclysm like we have never known before. Even more catastrophic than the Silver Gate, than when we entered the Silver Gate. And so this is why we see every mythology of all the different cultures are all explaining this and calling it, by different names. The Ragnarok, the Apocalypse, Armageddon, even the Persians have their own story that is very similar to the Norse mythology about the Ragnarok. The Mayans, they all have this knowledge and this mythology. The Hopi Indians, it's just repeated over and over. The more you look, the more you will find it. And I'm just literally relaying the most well-known mythology. But as I said, if you go and look at other mythologies of lesser-known cultures, the mythologies, the lesser-known mythologies of other cultures, you will see the same story again and again and again, because this is what happens at the end of the great year. And so this is what we are now experiencing. And so we are fully in the material now. We would have had an opportunity to engage in our heightening of consciousness, because we are experiencing that now. And I do believe, and I've said this many times, that there was a definite inundation of something happening in 2011, because a lot of people woke up. And I think it happened in 2004, 2005 as well. And I think it does come in waves. And I think we did experience something in 2011. And a lot of people used that opportunity to go and seek out knowledge. And then when it kind of waned, they got sucked back into the material world again. So it is very easy to be sucked back into the material world. So people who say once you're awake, you never go back to sleep, that is not true. I have seen it happen. I have seen it happen with people around me who go so far into the rabbit hole, see so much, knowledge to a certain point, and then don't like what they see, don't want to accept what they see, and then just ignore, just cut off and say, no, I refuse to go further, and then they go back into the material world. They don't enjoy themselves back in the material world, and it's very hard for them to stay in the material world, because once you have awakened to this knowledge, it will always stay somewhere there in the back of your mind, and it will make it harder for you to go and, re-engage back into materialism, but you can do it to a certain level, that's for sure. And we all do it to a certain level too, because you want to make your experience easier in these times. And when you are awake, it's a very lonely path, because you've got no one else around you. And I mean, you guys understand me, and which is why I do these streams, because it's a good way for us to connect and, reaffirm to ourselves that we're not the only ones, that there are others that are questioning their existence and experience and the knowledge. And it's a good way for us to connect on that level. So anyway, let's look at these different verses in the Kolbrin. And as I've said before, guys, I really do recommend you guys buy the Master Edition of the Kolbrin Bible. Now, it's not cheap, it's around $100 or $120, but, if you are going to invest in anything, then I would definitely invest in the Kolbrin Bible, because you will not find a full PDF of the Kolbrin Bible online. You'll only find parts of it. So you want the Master Edition that has all of the books in it. It's got the Celtic text of the Coal Book, and it's got the Egyptian text of the Bronze Book. You want those books which are in the Master Edition. So these two verses are from the Book of Lucius, which is the Celtic texts of the Coal Book. Man has a material sounding board called a brain, which means a drum skin. And this is very apt. However, if it is battered with impure desires or taken over by worldliness, it thickens and becomes a barrier against the spiritual forces. The brain, made dense with insensitivity and calloused with wickedness, forms a door that closes out all things of the spirit and becomes the servant of the senses. It no longer admits the light, and what light does penetrate becomes disguised and distorted into gloom. The door to the soul spirit becomes overgrown with weeds and brambles. The material and spiritual are separated by an immovable barrier, and the soul spirit slumbers while the body decays. So literally giving you a understanding about how we can allow the material world to cut us off from our spiritual part of who we are. And once we do that, it becomes harder and harder to kind of wrench open that door back to our spiritual self. And so we have to ensure that we're not allowing ourselves to be too indulgent into the material world. I mean, look, we all have to live in the world, but we don't have to be of the world. And that's the difference. You can be a spiritual person and live in the world, but once you are of the world, you are literally making everything in your material experience the full extent of who you are. So you're making your job who you are. I mean, how many people, when you meet them, the first thing people discuss with each other after you kind of strike up a conversation with someone you only just met is, oh, what do you do? And then, you tell them what you do, and then everybody gets to judge you and your character based off your, your slavery. Because literally what we do, our jobs, is just so that we can make money to exist in the system that they have created. So we are enslaved in this system. And so we should liken what we do for our, work, for our wage, to being a slave, to being slavery. Unless you are one of the lucky people who are literally able to use your talents and skills to create money, create a way to exist in the system, then you are just actually a slave to the system. Because really, we all have our own skills. None of us are alike. Everyone has their own particular skills. I'm pretty arty when it comes to, those skills. My skills are in, kind of the artistic side of things, but other people have skills in mathematics. Other people have skills in, languages. My son is a linguist. He can just pick up other languages so easily. You know, everyone has their own skills. And that should not be, you know, even the guy that you see cleaning the toilets at your work, or the office cleaner, whoever, has a skill. You know, there is a guy that I know, and he just works in one of the local supermarkets, and he's in fruit and veg over in the supermarkets. And he showed me some photos of the woodwork that he does, and I just thought to myself, wow, you know, nobody even knows that he is like such a gifted woodworker, you know. And it's only that I saw his stuff on the phone, and he said, oh, I go to the local markets and I sell my stuff at the local markets. Nobody would know. And that is happening all around you. There are people that you think that is all their life is, that is their job, yet they have skills, and some of them don't do anything with those skills, and some of them do. And so this is literally why we are just enslaved to the system, and we make the material, you know, system who we are, and then we use that to gauge how successful we are as a human. And so, oh, well, I've got a job in an office and I make so much per year, and I have this car and this house, so that makes me better than that person over there who is, you know, stocking shelves over there at the grocery store, and he doesn't drive a very nice car at all, but, well, I'm better than him. I mean, this is literally how they have created our social engineering. You know, they've socially engineered us to view each other, to be equated to our bank balance, to our what we do as slavery. It's just, we live in a very sick society. We live in a very sick world, and nobody who is even engaging in the materialistic world is very fulfilled at all. And even those celebrities, okay, they've all signed their souls away, literally. They've all been given this truth. They know this truth, okay? That is why they laugh at us and mock us and have no problems following the narratives given to them, following the script given to them. How many of them turned around and told us to go get the shot? How many of them turned around and, you know, started playing that part when we thought that they were on our side? Okay, and they've divided the celebrities and the actors into left and right as well, so they can keep us bickering. All of those celebrities have their role to play. You know, and a lot of them have even openly gone and kissed the ring of the head Jesuit as well. Okay? You know, DiCaprio, and what's he? He's pushing the whole, you know, climate change thing. You can see they all have their narrative, they all have their scripts, and they have all sold their souls for their fame and fortune. Okay, so, and now what do we see children doing? I mean, children, there was a story I saw about this, and you know how children, like when we were kids, right, and I'm a Gen Xer, and it was still pretty much like when we were kids, maybe not so much for the millennials, but, you know, and you'd be asked, you know, when you were little, like 5, 6 years old, you know, and you'd say, like, to a little boy, you know, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he'd be like, oh, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a fireman, or a policeman. And now you ask, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And the little boy or the little girl will say, I want to be an influencer. I want to have a, you know, be a rapper. I want to be a singer. I want to be an actor. I want to be... This is literally, and I'm not saying that there weren't some people back in the day that, you know, followed the acting path or whatever, but I'm saying literally every single kid now is telling you that that's what they want to be, because that's what they think the pinnacle of humanity is. A celebrity and an influencer and a rapper. I mean, literally, our society is so sick, guys. We are so sick. Right, now here's another one from the Celtic texts of the Cole Book. While man turns his soul spirit outwards towards the elusive and deceptive world of matter and mortality, seeking fulfillment there, so long will he be unaware of his greater being. Here he will never find true contentment and be cut off from companionable communication with his true self. He will remain restless and dissatisfied. He will be always seeking for something, though he knows not what. And that's what I was actually going to say before I tangented off, was that even these people who are indulging in this materialistic existence to the full degree, you know, they are fully indulging and fully, you know, have all of the riches, and they are always empty. They are always seeking something. They never feel fulfilled. And that's why you see so many of them in depression, so many of them suicide, you know, so many of them are very unhappy, and then they literally start acting out in very, you know, negative ways because they're sick. There's a sickness within them. And because they are so empty inside, they literally have nothing of any substance within them. Everything is external. And that's what we are made to do in this material world right now, is externalize everything. And you'll see that even in the New Age. You'll see it in the modern churches, is that everything is externalized. You know, it's all about rituals. You know, communion is a ritual. You know, singing is a ritual. Praying is a ritual. It's all ritualistic. It's all externalized. You will never see a clergy, a priest telling somebody. They will never focus on the texts. And I noticed this when I'm watching Crossroads, which is one of the Christian channels that I have found, which is quite large. It's 500,000 subscribers. And very, very much sending modern Christians down the wide path, right? Literally, one of them put out a video yesterday about how you could reach a Jehovah's Witness, you know, and to not give up on the Jehovah's Witness. You know why they hate the Jehovah's Witness? Because the Jehovah's Witness refuse to worship Jesus as God the Father. And that is why they will always hate on the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I'm not saying that the Jehovah's Witnesses aren't corrupted, because they are. Every single religious denomination, every single Christian sect, every single religion is co-opted now and corrupted. But what I'm saying is, out of all of the Christian sects, the Jehovah's Witnesses are the only ones who have not succumbed to the disinformation that Jesus is God the Father and to worship Jesus and not God the Father. I mean, I have modern Christians literally telling me that they have to work, that, oh, I'm not really worshiping Jesus, but I'm praying to Jesus so that Jesus will pray to God for me. That doesn't even make sense. You think the creator of the universe doesn't already know what you're thinking and feeling right now? That you need some intermediate to send the message through? When it says that Jesus is the mediator between God the Father and mankind, it doesn't mean that you can't have a connection to your creator, that you need to pray to Jesus to get the message through to God. No, it means that you need to listen to Jesus. And the words that Jesus is saying, the teachings that Jesus is saying, to understand divine knowledge, because the Christ is the direct connection to the mind of the all, to God the Father. And so to understand the knowledge from the mind of the all, we need to listen to the Christ. That's what that means. But no, they've handed their... They don't even listen to Jesus anymore. They listen to their clergy. Their clergy are their gods, not Jesus. Because Jesus says to them, why do you call me good when God alone is good? He's literally saying to them, I'm not perfect. Why are you calling me good? Only God alone is good. God the Father. But they ignore him. They ignore him just like they ignore the teachings about the Christ being within all of us. God being within all of us. And that's what I was about to say before, is that the clergy will never teach them that. This large YouTube channel, and I'm sure that's only one of many. I don't want to fully inundate my feed with all the bullshit of the modern Christian church, so I'm only just sub to that one channel. But they will never ever talk about the verses where it speaks of the divine, the Christ being within us all, that we all contain the Christ, because they don't want anybody questioning that. They want everyone externalizing. They don't want anybody looking within and understanding that we all contain the Christ to a different degree. We don't know who the gods are amongst mankind right now, but we can know one thing for sure, that we all contain the Christ, and we all have the potential to be God-like and to be Christ-like, to emulate the gods and to emulate Christ, the Christed, because it's not just one Christ, it's the Christed. And that is why when you look at the European mythology surrounding the Christ kind, there is a mythology and it is attributed to Christmas, and I have done a video in relation to the symbols of Christmas, but they are called the Christ kind. And that is the most correct way to see the Christ, is to see them as a mass, a Christed. And that is why I called my video in regards to Christmas, the massing of the Christed, the massing of the Christ, the mass of the Christ, Christmas. Christ mass. That's what it literally means. The mass of humanity that are Christed. And then we can be Christ-like. We can be Buddha-like. We can be God-like. We can't be divine and we can't be gods and we can't be Buddhas unless we are divine in nature to that degree. That's the difference. But we, every single one of us, contain the Christ within. So there's nothing stopping us from being Christ-like. We have free will in that regard, that we can choose the path of virtue or we can choose the path of vice. And if we want to be weak-minded and cowardly, well then we may as well just go and join the atheists and the New Agers. And, you know, because they're all going down that same wide path together. Right, now, another one from the Celtic text of the Cole Book. The unenlightened man is unaware of anything beyond his limiting mortal wall or outside the scope of his own ideas and interpretations. Yet his ideas are clouds of preconceived prejudices and his interpretations deceptive illusions. He is dead to reality, entombed within himself. So again, just making up all of these ideas in their head. The New Agers do this. They're very good at this. Again, externalizing everything. If I eat this, if I do yoga, if I meditate, if I do this and that, it will make me more spiritual. And literally, they are just creating these realities, these fake realities up in their heads. You know, if I only I do this, if only I eat a vegan diet, if only I drink this or do that, then I will become more spiritual and I will raise my vibration and I will become enlightened. I mean, they've just lied to themselves and told them all of this. There is no text in existence that says this. And I say this time and time again to all of the New Agers. Go and read the actual text. You will find that nothing can be found that is taught in the New Age. Nothing can be found in the texts. So, now we're getting to the end, guys. The black cube. What's the black cube? Why do people connect the black cube with Saturn? Because the black cube is literally representing the void before creation. So if we see the 0 in the Fibonacci sequence as the stage before something is created, before something becomes created and manifest in the material. And that's literally what the cube means, the black cube. And when we fold the cube out, it becomes a cross. And that's what the cross represents as well, because the first creation, when we are connecting it to Humanity was the divine race, and the cross represents each of the races of the divine race. The white race, the red race, the yellow race, and the black race are all represented by different aspects of the cross, different sections of the cross. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Don't need to go into that too much. The tarot card is also representing zero as well. It's zero in the tarot cards, and or the Fool card, and that represents Kether on the Kabbalah Tree of Life. When you overlay the major arcana on the Kabbalah Tree of Life, then the zero card is on the Kether card, and Kether represents the mind of the all, God the Creator. The Kaaba. Now that's another thing that's shaped like a black cube, and we know that it's very important in Islam, and it's at the holiest site called Mecca. Now Mecca, like Israel, is just a symbolism for God's land, for the Holy Land. Okay, and so what they've done is just gone and created a place and said, let's call it Mecca, and trick them into believing it's what we talk about in the scriptures. That's exactly what they've done with Mecca as well. And they've put this big cube there, and these poor, hapless Muslims, no different to the modern Christians, are then encouraged to go there every year on a pilgrimage and circle it and then kiss this black stone, okay, or touch this black stone, literally encouraging them into idol worshipping. And I find this so sad, because they've gone to such extents to not represent Muhammad in any form, like a man or a woman, like they've done with Jesus and Mary, like they're forbidden to do that. And so that was a way to deter them from idol worship and idolatry. And then they've ensnared them in this whole pilgrimage to the Kaaba and encouraging them to touch a rock and to kiss a rock and worship and pray to a rock. Very, very sad for the Muslims. And they are no different to the Christians, and they are so aligned in their belief systems that they don't know it. It just makes me laugh. When you read the Quran and you read the Bible and you see so many similarities, you know, both monotheistic as well. So all of these Christians that hate Muslims, you're hating a fellow believer in the prime creator, in God. So yeah, not very smart. But I just wanted to read this from Prophet Muhammad. Right, and Muhammad is representing another divine man, okay, and he basically warned about this time, and he said, he prophesied that a time would come when nothing would remain of Islam but its name, and nothing of the Quran but its word, and that the many mosques would be splendidly furnished but destitute of guidance. In these latter days, the true spiritual essence of Islam would be lost, and religion, for the most part, would be reduced to a ritualistic compulsion. He foretold that the clergy would be corrupt and be a source of strife during these times. And again, nobody listening to him, just like nobody listening to Jesus. Interesting that, isn't it? The people that literally claim to be the most divine, the most spiritual and religious are the most ignorant and the least likely to follow the actual teachings of their prophets. But Jesus being another prophet, and this is why Jesus is not seen as the son. See, the Islamic texts went to a very, very they really tried hard not to encourage idolatry, and so they didn't want to raise any of the divine race to be equal to Allah. Allah is another name for God, and literally Christians who speak Aramaic call God, and Arabic call God Allah. Okay, so it's just another name for God. It's not Allah as a separate entity or deity, like I've been told by Christians that he is the devil, that he represents the devil. No. Can you imagine? These Christians are now calling God the devil. Yeah, that's how stupid they are. How moronic these idiots are. All right. Now, just going to finish off with a couple of quotes from the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus said, right, the disciples said to Jesus, "Tell us, how will our end come?" And Jesus said, "Have you found the beginning? Then that you are looking for the end. You see, the end will be where the beginning is. Congratulations to the one who stands at the beginning. That one will know the end and will not taste death." Jesus literally talking about the great year cycle. Okay, there is no end and beginning. It is just a continuous cycle. And if you understand that, you will not taste death, because you will understand divine knowledge in the level of understanding needed to pass the last judgment, the weighing of the heart, and move into the new cycle of the great year. So it can also be connected to the cycle of our souls. So Jesus literally is telling us about reincarnation. Okay. And then Jesus said, the Father's kingdom is like a person who has good seed. His enemy came during the night and sowed weeds among the good seed. The person did not let the workers pull up the weeds, but said to them, "No, otherwise you might go to pull up the weeds and pull up the wheat along with them. For on the day of the harvest, the weeds will be conspicuous and be pulled up and burned." Again, this is talking about the last judgment, the weighing of the heart, sorting the wheat and the chaff. And again, we don't see these last Christian channels talking about last judgment. We don't see them talking about Revelation. We are literally living Revelation right now. It is playing out. So why aren't all the clergy talking about Revelation? You know, anybody who is listening to this video and still goes to church, and I know that that would literally be zero, because, you know, people are scared, modern Christians are scared of this knowledge. But if you are one of those very, very, very rare people who are still going to church and seeking out other knowledge, you need to ask yourself why your clergy isn't speaking about Revelation every single time you go to church and readying your soul for last judgment. Because another lie that these Christians have been told is that they're all going to be ascended before all of this happens. They are going to be raptured out of here. You know, don't worry about having to go through what everybody else has to go through and experience the most negative of the apocalypse and Armageddon. No, they're going to be lifted up and saved from all of that. Nowhere in the Bible does it say this, by the way. This is just another false belief given to them. And they all get so excited about Jesus is returning and they're going to be raptured and Jesus is coming to save them. And, you know, can't wait till Jesus gets here. And the Bible literally says to them, why are you looking forward to the day that Jesus is returned, to the return of Christ? Because that day will be darkness, not light. So again, telling them to their faces, you know, and they just don't want to listen. So I don't know. You cannot help these people. They've been filled with such delusions and false beliefs, and they just love them so much. You know, their itching ears just love what they're being told, and they won't turn from it. They won't turn from that wide path. And I suppose that's why so many go down that wide path, because it's just, it's such an attractive path. That's how the antichrists have worked. And I say antichrist because everyone's always waiting for an antichrist to be revealed. And don't worry, they will reveal the antichrist. There will be one particular one they hold up as their leader. And my thoughts are that it's going to be King Charles. And I've done a video, a live stream in regards to the coronation of the false king. And I give you all of the reasons I think it is going to be King Charles. One, we don't think King Charles of, you know, in that way, so it's going to be a surprise, and they know, and they do say that it's going to be who we don't expect it to be, and nobody would expect that bumbling mummy's boy to be the Antichrist. Two, it's because he has a lot of connections with the divine race, in particular his coronation chair. And the dates as well are correlating to the dates of the Trojan, the Trojan horse. That's one of them, but there's other dates as well that relates to, and other information. So I won't go into that now, but I do suggest, if you're interested, go and have a look at that coronation of the false king. So I do believe that we will know who this false Messiah is, the one that they are going to elevate as their leader. Whether they'll do it on the 6th of May, I don't know. But things will definitely escalate after the 6th of May. We can be sure of that. That their script is going to start kicking it up a gear again, because we've hit pause for now, but they're just waiting until the coronation, they crown their false Messiah, and then they're going to kick it up a notch again. So get ready for that. And another thing I wanted to warn you guys about is that there is a video that Christine Lagarde, who is the chair of the European Federal Reserve, you know how the US has got a Federal Reserve and Australia's got a Federal Reserve, like every country has one. Well, there's one for the EU, right, for Europe. So Europe's Federal Reserve chair, Christine Lagarde, she put out a video, and I think it was in 2015. Don't quote me on that. I will provide the video underneath the this video here that I post in my MeWe group, Keepers of the Flame. So if you want all the notes for this stream, they will be posted in my MeWe group, Keepers of the Flame, and there will be a link underneath the video so you can find that. And I'll post a video of Christine Lagarde talking about the number 7. Literally talking about the number 7 and how they love the number 7 and how it's a magic number. And this is the chair of the Reserve Bank of Europe standing on a stage talking about the number 7 and how the number 7 is so important to them and so special, and they think it's such a magical number. And guess what 2023 equates to, guys, when you reduce it down to a single number? That would be a 7. So I would not be surprised in the second half of the year, after June, that we start really seeing this financial shit show being kicked up a notch. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this year they have literally crashed the market. So, and I'm talking the global market, not just a little crash of the markets. I'm talking a literal meltdown where banks are going insolvent, and the whole system collapses. The whole global financial system collapses. I've just got this feeling that when she was talking about the number 7 and 2023 being a number 7, I don't know if they're going to miss that opportunity. But I can tell you one thing for sure, that after they crown the false king, that they're definitely going to escalate their script again. So be prepared for that. This is why it's so important to understand yourself and understand this knowledge, because when you understand yourself and you understand you are more than just a physical body and you are more than just a material, person and the material world, when you understand that there is more to you, then you do not fear death. So, yes, that's a good one too, Lisa. Yes, they know 7 is a very important number. And next year being an 8, and we know what 8 relates to. 8 relates directly to the divine race and their immortality. And so next year, I would not be surprised if we see things escalate further into global conflict. But yeah, we just need to continue to watch and observe and understand who we are at a deeper level, because that will remove the fear of death. And when you don't fear death of your physical container, they have no power over you anymore. That's why they've taken the knowledge, because knowledge is power. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. And I'm going to leave it there. And just going back to Antichrist. So the Bible speaks of Antichrists, okay? Not just one. That's why I begun that tangent, just to let you know that when I say antichrists, that the Bible confirms that there are more than one. And yes, there will be a main one, but in the meantime, everyone who is against the Christ within you, who is trying to extinguish your light, is an antichrist, can be viewed as an antichrist. And they are doing their best to try and extinguish that light within you and to try and keep you ignorant to who you really are as a soul. So don't allow them to succeed. Take back your power, guys. All right, well, we're going to actually finish up on 2 hours today. So I hope that helped you understand the difference between Saturn and Satan and the similarities between Saturn and Satan, because there are similarities, and they are also different symbols, because remember that Saturn also relates to the ethereal stages and the ethereal ages of the great year cycle, as well as the material ages in which we are now existing in. We are in the material lower ages of the cycle, and we are about to move back into the ethereal age, the golden age. And so this is why we are experiencing all of these upheavals, not only in our material world, in the earth changes, but also politically, but also within ourselves. We're experiencing changes within ourselves and within ourselves consciously as well. And so put that to good use. Don't be ensnared in the false paths that they are putting down before you. Okay, even if they sound good, it's a trick. Okay, and so you need to understand that you are a soul and that you have a God-gifted intellect, and to go back and research the ancient texts for yourself. Go back and research into all of the ancient texts in their purest form, all of the scriptures, not just the Bible, the Quran, the Hindu texts, the Norse mythology, the Hopi mythology, the Persian mythology, you know, all of the different ancient philosophers. Go and look at the texts for yourself, because you have the intellect to do that. All right, guys, well, I'm going to leave it here. Have a great week, and I will see you next week at the same time. So as always, peace out.